Welcome to Your Inner Advocate, a podcast by Kimen Petersen, formerly Conversations with Kimen. This podcast is a space for inspiration, soulful insights, and meaningful life lessons. Your host, Kimen Petersen, draws from personal stories and powerful conversations with remarkable people to help illuminate your path. These episodes reflect his lived experiences and thoughtful perspectives, all aimed at encouraging you to live life with greater authenticity, joy, and ease. Your Inner Advocate is here to help you tune in, trust your inner wisdom, and move through life with more clarity, flow, and fulfillment.
Today I wanted to talk about the kind of scarcity mindset and how to shift it into an abundance mindset. Because the truth is, life, the universe is abundant. But sometimes, like I've said it before, what you focus on expands. If you focus on what you're lacking, you'll see more of what you're lacking. If you focus on the fact that life is abundant, then you'll see more abundance. The scarcity whispers there's never enough. And abundance declares there's always more. The mindset you choose will shape your entire life. So today on Your Inner Advocate, we're going to explore how to rewire your thinking from scarcity to abundance and why that shift is key to living with opportunities, worth, and possibility. Scarcity mindset is pretty simple, and it may be like almost inherent within us. They say the reason this form of human being survived, like we weren't the strongest. The Neanderthals were incredibly strong. But we had something else. We had a couple things. One, we were incredibly adaptable, that we could live in any climate on the planet. And you can see that today too, right? Like, people are living in the Arctic and they're living in the hottest desert too. So it was partially because we're adaptable, but the bigger reason that we survived was we were hyper vigilant to threat. And if you think of it, that kind of fits in with a scarcity mindset. How we're always looking for threat, for what we're lacking, for the fact that there's never enough. And how this form of human being survive was we learned to prepare and be ready and be watching for problems. So probably learn to store food for the winter months, etc. So the scarcity mindset, it's filled with fear of lack. Like it's never going to be enough. Have you ever sat and wondered, like if you're younger, you're wondering about how am I ever going to retire? How will there ever be enough? And a scarcity of time, right? How am I going to have enough time? So you're hoarding your time, you're hoarding your money, you're hoarding your opportunities. You're comparing your life to others. But the abundance mindset, it's sitting in the space where it trusts that the universe and life is completely abundant. Sitting in a place where you trust that the opportunities will show themselves. Have you ever heard me say that I believe we have free will, but it's not what we thought? And the idea is there's actually a path for each and every one of us. And we can go willingly or unwillingly, but we're going to go either way. Because if you think about it, most of the time, everything works out. Most of the time, you have enough. Most of the time, the opportunities show up. And they show up even though you're stressed and worried that they won't. They still show up. Sometimes they take a little longer. The abundance mindset also understands that I think it was said in the Bible somewhere that, cast your bread upon the water and it'll come back tenfold. So the understanding of generosity, of not hoarding money, of not hoarding time, of not hoarding care. It's like just putting it out there and seeing that it comes back. I know in my manual therapy practice, there's been many, many times when people, they were injured or they came into a financial crunch, and they've told me, well, I can't see you any longer. And one I always remember is this a woman I was working with, and her comment was she was 2 years past her milk carton date. So if you understand, when you have cancer, a lot of time they used to, I don't know if they do it as much anymore, they give you a survival time rate, like you're going to live this long. And she'd already lived 2 years past that date. She's definitely palliative. She was going to die, and she knew it. She's probably one of the most alive people I've ever met. And one day she came in, she was having a problem because of complications from tumors, was causing some extreme swelling in her abdomen. But there was an experimental medication that her doctor put her on that was really working. And she came in and said, this is going to be the last time I can see you. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Why is that? She said, well, it's not about you. I'm on this medication. And it's really working, but it's not covered by anything, and it costs $5,000 a month. Now she was seeing me once a month, and I was in transition. I was moving from one place to another clinic. I was in a temporary space, and long story short, I wasn't making the kind of money I'd made before. I was slowly rebuilding. And without hesitation, I said, I guess you're going to have to see me twice a month now. And she said, I don't think you understand. I'm like, I don't think you understand. Please allow me. I want to comp you 2 treatments a month. I don't care about the money. I just want to make sure that you have some more comfort in this time. And so it took her a bit to accept. But I want to tell you something. No amount of money could make me feel the way I felt when I saw her. She'd come in tired and sluggish, and she'd walk away with a smile and a pep in her step. And it's like, yeah, living my purpose, making a difference, and not caring about money. The abundant mindset has generosity built in, but also has an understanding is like when you cast your bread upon your waters, it comes back tenfold. And I continue that tradition. I have a couple athletes that I sponsor. And every once in a while, somebody's having a hard time and they can't really financially afford it. So I just comp them. Because I did spend a life of scarcity, and now I spend a life of abundance. Abundance understands that there is possibility always. I guess you could almost say one of my favorite sayings that I've come up with in my life is, if you think back to every problem in your life, they have, like the ones that are in the past, they all have a few things in common. And first off, just the fact that they're in the past said there was a solution. And if you get really honest with how they worked out, the solution was probably much better than you thought it would be when you're sitting in the problem. So the idea that there will be solutions, and they won't be as bad as you like, not scarcity in solution even, right? Saw this quote the other day. The universe is not short on wonder. It's only short on wonder-filled eyes. And the truth is, I didn't always see the world this way. I had to learn abundance the hard way. And one of the ways I really learned it was by teaching it to somebody who I care about deeply, who I love the most in this world. My first story around abundance is the story about my wife. So, I don't know if you've heard one of the former episodes, you'll know that I met my wife when I was coming through a self-help, like recreation moment in my life. And one day there was this new person at the yoga studio I was going to, and we started talking and laughing. And I knew right away, this is somebody I could spend the rest of my life with. And then she told me that she was engaged. And I was like, nah, that's okay. In my head, I was like, need to have this person in my life. I'll just let them define it. And anyway, I was planning on being a monk at the time anyway. Skip ahead about a year and a half. She split up with her fiance. The only place she could find to live was really close to me. And I waited a year. She said 11 months, and I asked her out. So early in our relationship, I remember one day we both had our own separate places. And she was in school, she was working, teaching yoga, and she was working at a coffee shop early in the morning. And one day she broke down. She said, sometimes she just wants a tea and a scone, but she can't spend the money because she doesn't have the money. If she spent the money, then something else would lack. So I said, give me your wallet. Then I put $20 in it. And she said, yeah, but I won't spend it. No, you will. Because tomorrow I'm going to say, show me your wallet. And I do want you to spend it. See, I want you to know that there's abundance. So we're going to play this little trick on life. So every day we're going to make sure you have enough money for a tea and a biscuit. And you're free to spend it if you wish to spend it. So every day I'd say, show me your wallet. It's funny when you go to teach somebody something, sometimes they turn it back on you. So a few years later, I hit a wall in my life, and I left a job for the first time without a plan on another job. And that's when I went back to school for what I'm doing now. And so on the morning of the first day, as I'm going back to school the first time, my wife, Patricia, goes, show me your wallet. Kind of cool when somebody, full circle. When you start believing in abundance, you stop competing for scraps, and you start creating peace. Think about the relationships in your life. How many could transform if both people believed that there was more than enough to go around? So another lesson I learned around abundance was pretty powerful. The program I was in was 3,000 hours with 550 clinic hours over 20 months. We're in school 8 to 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. And once we were finished that, we had a month before we could do licensing exams. And I remember the amount of stress I was in the final month of the final term. And all I wanted through this whole program was an opportunity to help people. And I was so stressed, I didn't think I could make it. It's a long story, but the truth is, I have a powerful imposter syndrome. So through this whole course, I'm getting 91+% average. And I'm spending the whole time ducking my head down, hiding, thinking they would figure out that I don't belong here. So you can imagine how much stress was in my mind by the time I got to the end of this program. And at the end of the program, I was so stressed, I didn't think there was any way I would make it through getting the diploma from the educational institute I was in, let alone finish the license exam. And one day, because I realized I just want to make a difference, I either want to make it through this course and become the therapist, like a registered licensed therapist, or at least let me teach. And sometimes the universe decides they're going to teach you a lesson in abundance. It was probably a couple weeks before I finished my program. I'm walking down the hall and I get cut off by the dean of the school. And she's like, "Kimen, you're coming to work for us or coming to teach for us." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I was thinking about it and I'd really like to, but I don't have a bachelor's. So, and I don't have the hours. Like I'm going to have to wait till I have the hours." And she's just like, "You let me worry about that." She said, "You did have a lot of education in listening, communication." I'm like, "Yeah, a ton." She said, "Set up a resume. I'm going to talk to the regulatory body. I'm going to get permission for you to teach." And she did. And then I also passed my course and became a licensed registered therapist. And I learned something. Life is not about one or the other. There's so much abundance, you can have both. You can literally have it all. You know that saying, you can't have your cake and eat it too? That's scarcity. Abundance says you can have your cake, you can eat it too, and then you can have another. Abundance is not about what you receive. It's about recognizing that life is always giving. Think about it. How often do we limit our prayers, our hopes, and our dream? Because we think asking for more is greedy. What if asking boldly is the doorway to abundance? And if you have a little bit of that, like fear of being greedy, that means you're a generous person. And don't you think that if you had more, you wouldn't give more? I think you would. So then asking boldly for more would mean you would have the opportunity to give more. And setting yourself up to give more, is that greedy? Just a thought. So I'd like to tell you another story about my father. It's another story of like being stuck in scarcity. Because, sometimes we're stuck in scarcity and you can't say like, if you're going, there's not enough. You say, "Oh no, but I'll fight that with an affirmation of there's always enough. There's always enough." For me, that's like putting a sweet icing on a crap cake. It still tastes bad. So what's another way to look at it? Well, here's a story about my dad. So there was this time my dad had this incredible business, and then times got a little tough And my dad's somebody who watches the news a lot. And he's looking at how the economy is coming down. He's looking around him and everybody's having trouble. And one day he's complaining to me on the phone. He's like, I think I can barely pay the mortgage. I can barely pay the rent on the business. We're not making any money. I'm like, well, why do you think that is? It's like the economy's terrible. And I thought, it's time to talk about abundance in a different way. Because sometimes you can't go right at it. So I reminded him that, has he not heard that more wealth is made, more millionaires or billionaires are made during the economic term than any other time in life? And that's a fact. And he's like, well, why is that? How's that even possible? There's no money, no opportunity. And like, that's the reason, because everybody's sitting in a scarcity complex, like there's nothing. But the truth is there's always opportunity. So what happens is these people who are very, very aware that there's always opportunity, they're the ones that recognize the opportunities that come up and capitalize and make money off it. While everybody else is sitting, the economy's bad. We're not going to make it. So how do you deal with that? And so his company was all about first aid and safety, about saving lives. And I'm like, why did you start this? And he was like, well, it's like, so when he was about 19, there was an accident in a hard rock mine where they set off an explosion while he was down there welding a boxcar. And he had enough wherewithal to like find his way back to the oxyacetylene tank, shut off the acetylene, turn on the oxygen, and put his helmet over his face and just blow in pure oxygen until they found him, dusted him off. And there was no first aid or safety back there. They brushed him off and they sent him home. And he was moving a fridge. He collapsed, went to the local clinic. There's nothing we can do. They flew him to Vancouver. He died 3 times on the operating table, but because he was such a young and healthy man, they just kept on working until they brought him back. And he's like, well, you know why I started this company? It's because I wanted to save lives. And so this is the hack I gave him. I said, I want you to take out a piece of paper right now and write, my purpose is to save lives, and write it big and bold. And you put it beside the phone. And every time you answer the phone, before you answer the phone, you read it and you look at it while you're talking on the phone. In 6 months, his business went from almost collapsing to making more money than he'd ever made. So in the second half of the year, he made more money than he'd ever made. And because he was living from purpose, from possibility, and he stopped living from scarcity. Another story, and this is a little bit more recent. So I was starting to run a little bit more, and I decided, actually, it was great. I was talking to one of my patients, and they're a super, super awesome human being, runner. And I was telling them, I'm not going to run a marathon until I know I can do it in under 5 hours. And they looked up at me and they said, Kimen, what do you tell us? I'm like, oh yeah, thank you. Oh man, call me on my crap anytime. Please, if I ever say something that's not aligned with who I say I am and who you know I am, you call me on it. I'll be so grateful. Because I wanted to. And I had all this thought process in my head, like, oh man, I can't do that. I'm going to be too tired. Like, I can't get up early. I can't run after work because like I have to eat, and then I can't run after eat. And I had all this scarcity. And then I started thinking, like, I just don't have enough time, right? And like, if you look at the outside of my life, you're going to see that it really looks like I don't have enough time. I'm in the office, like about 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, working. And I love it. Like, honestly, I'm jacked. A few years ago, I remember I was talking to one of my patients and they were injured and they couldn't really run. And they were like, I'm like, what do you have to lean into when running isn't going well? And they looked up at me and said, what do you have besides work, Kimen? And I'm like, oh, touche. So that's when I took on my first hobby. And that was, I bought a camera and I would take running photos of like, love taking running races, of sports, also of nature and such. So I had that one thing. But I really wanted to get more into running. So I was trying to think, how do I do this? Like, and I started looking at my life. And of course, I get home from work around 7, uh, cuddle with the puppy for a few minutes, have a shower, eat some food, hang out with the puppy for a little bit longer, take them for a walk at 8 to 8:30. The puppy would go to bed about 8:30. And I realized that I go to bed at 10:30. But between 8:30 and 10:30, it was just a waste of time. I put some TV on the background. I'd be scrolling through my phone. What a waste. So I thought, wow, okay, so I have this abundance of time. And I chose that I'd go to bed at 9 o'clock, which would give me another hour and a half. And then I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And at first I would get up and I'd go out and run, and I realized that didn't feel great. So I would get up, have a coffee, and then run. And I built it up and I kept on a little more till I was running like 5 days a week. And I'd go and work out in the gym 2 days a week. And I wasn't tired during the day. In fact, okay, let's be honest about that. Somebody asked me, like, you work so much, aren't you tired? I'm like, my answer was, I'm always tired. But you know what? When I run or I work out in the morning, I'm alert, clear, and tired. I wasn't groggy and tired anymore. I'm alert, clear, and tired. I'm fully alive. And of course, somewhere along the way, I decided that I wanted to start this podcast. And like everybody's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And one of the things I do, if I want to start something, I'm really serious. I start talking about it and I tell people when I'm going to start it so they'll hold me to it. And I started it exactly in the timing that I said I would start it. So now, I'll photography when I can, running every day, or gym. Sometimes I do take a day off. And now I got my podcast, recording on Sundays, releasing 2 episodes a week, making a bunch of reels and releasing a reel and a quote every day. And guess what? I really believe that if something else comes along, there's an abundance of time, and I'll do that. So here's some lessons that I've learned. Abundance grows. Abundance grows in you when you share it with others, when you teach others how to have abundance. Abundance creates time. It creates unexpected things to show up in your space. And it also reveals time when your priorities align with your purpose. Abundance isn't out there somewhere. It starts with your thinking and in the small choices you make every day. So if you want to create an abundance mindset, here's some things you can do. Like, you could, maybe you're walking to the bus or the work, you could go over daily gratitude. What am I grateful for today? Like, what are the things I'm grateful for? If the conversation is, I can't afford it, you could say, how can I create it? If you really want to create abundance, practice generosity, giving time, giving energy, giving kindness. If you can comp people's things sometimes, if you have a little bit of extra money, give money. Abundance mindset will really be created if you can surround yourself with others who have an abundance mindset, who you can share ideas with, who you can encourage each other. Abundance mindset can be created when you say yes to opportunities, even when you're afraid. The truth is abundance isn't something we acquire. It's actually something we tune into. It's already there, all around us. Think about it. Scarcity will shrink your world, and abundance will expand it. And the choice is yours every single day. And you don't have to get it right all the time, but just take little baby steps. Just start today. Notice where you're thinking about scarcity, like where you think there's not enough, and choose to look and see abundance. And I really believe you'll be amazed at how your world begins to change, begins to open. What you focus on expands. If you focus on lack, you'll get lack. If you focus on abundance, you'll live in abundance. Keep on building your own inner advocate.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Inner Advocate, a podcast by Kimen Petersen, formerly Conversations with Kimen. If you found value in today's episode, please follow, like, and share the podcast with someone who you think may benefit from it. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and connect on Instagram at your_inner_advocate. Until next time, keep listening to and developing your inner advocate.